This happened more than a month ago, and to this day, it's still not over. The most recent time was just last night. Even now, I can't stop shaking when I think about it. I wasn't planning to share this, but the longer I keep it to myself, the heavier it feels, like something pressing down on my chest. I need to say it just once, hoping someone out there might understand. It all started around a month ago when I returned to my hometown. I was taking a break, trying to clear my mind after quitting my job. I thought a few quiet weeks back home would help. But strangely enough, the day I arrived, the neighbors were having a funeral. It was Mr. Thayer's. He lived just a few houses down from us, over 70 years old, blind in his final years, and one of the oldest in our neighborhood. His life had always seemed difficult, and his death didn't come as a surprise. He had 8 children, but most of them had moved far away. Only 3 remained by his side. 2 were already married and still living at home. The youngest daughter, though, was unmarried. Her name was Calliope. She was in her 30s, but people often mistook her for being younger. Not unattractive, really. She had something about her. But her moods were unpredictable. One day sweet, the next completely withdrawn or angry. A few guys had tried dating her before, but none lasted long. Eventually, they all left. No one stuck around. Over time, her attitude became more bitter. People in the neighborhood stopped talking to her unless they had to. Then came the rumor. Early last year, people said Calliope had gotten pregnant, but the man responsible wanted nothing to do with her. Her family tried convincing her to have an abortion, but she refused. She insisted on keeping the baby. And then one day, she went to draw water from the well. No one knows what exactly happened. All anyone could say was that she somehow got hit, hard, by the wooden crank, right in the stomach. She lost the baby. After that, everything fell apart. She cried constantly, stopped eating, stayed in bed for weeks. It was as if something inside her had died along with the child. Her family did what they could to comfort her, and after a while, she stopped crying, but she didn't return to normal. That's when the screaming began. At first, it was just late at night. Then it became more frequent, louder, more disturbing. Her voice would echo through the neighborhood like an animal in pain. Her siblings, who still lived with her, started staying in their rooms. They didn't speak of her. They avoided her like she was something cursed. Even from our house, which is quite a distance away, we could hear her. My parents often complained that she kept them awake, but no one said anything to her. What could we say? She had been shamed, abandoned, lost a child, and then her mind. All anyone could do was feel sorry. We tried to ignore it, to let time pass. But my younger brother, he was more sensitive than me, more afraid. He would get. I kept wondering why no one ever locked her in. It was late at night. What if she fell into the river, or wandered into the street and got hit by a car? My little brother said they tried. Mr. Thayer would bolt the door shut, but Calliope was still strong, crazy strong. She'd kick the door a few times and it would give way like it was made of cardboard. I had heard these stories before, but I brushed them off. I was still caught up in school, drowning in textbooks and lectures. It all felt far away. But that morning, when I returned home and saw all the neighbors crowding outside Mr. Thayer's house, I knew something had happened. Something real. They told me Calliope had drowned in the river. Last night, no one found her body until morning. They had just pulled her out, and now they were preparing to bury her. I felt my knees weaken. My stomach turned cold. I couldn't tell if I was afraid or just deeply, unbearably sad. She was still young. Her life had been so broken, so full of pain, and now, just like that, it was over. Later that day, I followed my brother to Mr. Thayer's place. I told myself it was to pay respects. In truth, I was curious. I wish I hadn't been. They had her body laid out under a white sheet. I didn't mean to look, but when someone lifted the cloth for just a second, I caught a glimpse. And it's something I can never unsee. Her skin had bloated, turned pale like wax. Her lips were cracked, flaking apart like layers of something rotten. One of her eyes was closed, but the other, wide open, staring into nothing, the whites bloodshot and dry. There was a red streak on her chest, like something had burst beneath the skin. I felt a chill run down my back. Not like fear, but like ice water had been poured down my spine. I turned away instantly, but the damage was done. That image, Her face, her eye, her mouth burned itself into my memory like a brand. I couldn't shake it. And then, suddenly, the room erupted. People gasping, voices rising in panic. Someone shouted, "She's bleeding! She's bleeding again!" I didn't want to look. I swear I didn't. But instinct made me turn. I saw it with my own eyes. Blood, fresh blood, seeping from her nose, bubbling from her mouth, thin and dark and slow. It trickled down, soaking into the cloth beneath her, mixing with the water still clinging to her skin. No one moved. No one spoke. We all just stared. It wasn't supposed to happen. Dead bodies don't bleed like that. But she did. It was as if the river hadn't finished with her. As if something still wanted her back.
I was still in shock when my little brother leaned in and whispered again.
"Sis, they say when someone dies unjustly, or if they bleed after death, it means someone close to them is nearby." Damn kid, already scared and still trying to spook me further. I snapped. "That's just something that happens with drowning victims. Don't talk nonsense." "Really? I didn't know," he mumbled. I wasn't afraid of ghosts, but staring at a corpse too long isn't good for anyone. I went back home to prepare dinner. From next door, the wailing continued non-stop. So many neighbors were still coming by to pay their respects. After dinner, my parents returned to Mr. Thayer's house to help out. They didn't come home until late that night. I'd heard people say when a woman dies young, especially in such a tragic way, her soul doesn't rest easy. They said she might become a vengeful spirit, haunting the whole neighborhood. I didn't believe it, not really. For the next 3 days, our whole family was practically living at Mr. Thayer's. We only came back to wash up or grab something quickly. Meals were eaten over there. At funerals like this, people usually serve chicken soup, fruit, whatever was easy to eat and enough to fill the stomach. That morning, after Calliope was buried, the village slowly returned to its quiet state. The streets emptied. The air felt heavy. That same night, something happened. I remember it clearly. It was just past 11 p.m. I was watching the news in the living room when my brother came in and asked if I wanted to eat spaghetti with him. It was summer break, so he stayed up late reading. He loved horror, manga, novels, forums, anything creepy, he devoured it. Sometimes he'd forget to eat or drink, completely absorbed in those stories. He only ate when he was truly starving. That night, everything felt normal. But deep down, something had shifted.
My parents had gone to bed early.
I stayed up, still reading an article online, but my mind wasn't focused. The image of Calliope's swollen corpse kept lingering in the corners of my memory. Even the spaghetti in front of me felt tasteless. I told my brother to eat first. I'd come down later. 10 minutes passed. Suddenly he came bolting up the stairs, pale as a sheet, eyes wide, stuttering in panic. "Sis, I just saw Calliope." I looked up from my laptop, alarmed by the sheer terror on his face. He wasn't lying. I knew that look too well. Still, I asked, "Where? Calliope's dead. What are you saying?" He stepped closer, pointing a shaky finger toward the back of the house. "In the kitchen. She leaned over and called to me." A chill spread through me. I didn't know what to believe, half in doubt, half already terrified. I never really feared ghosts because I didn't believe they existed, but that doesn't mean I'd stay calm if I ever saw one. He kept talking, voice trembling. "She was standing right at the back window. I went down there, just hungry, nothing weird at first. I closed the back door but left the window open a little for air. I sat down facing the counter, back to the window. Then, just a few bites in, I felt something behind me, cold, like a blade through the spine. When I turned around, she was there." He collapsed onto the floor, back against the wall, his whole body trembling. I could feel the cold off him like it was seeping into me too. I was scared, yes, but I couldn't let him see it. I was his big sister, so I stood up, trying to sound strong. "Come on, let's go check it out together." He shook his head violently. "No way, I'm not going down there again. You go, I'm staying here." "All right," I said, trying to stay calm. "Then you stay up here, alone. But if Calliope comes looking for you, don't blame me." With that, I started walking down the stairs, each step louder than the last, echoing through the quiet house. My heart was pounding like it was going to shatter my ribs. Our home in the countryside was an old brick house. Not because we couldn't afford renovations, but because our parents were used to living this way. They liked it. It was cooler in the summer. The house was L-shaped, with only the kitchen built in reinforced concrete. The rest of it was old-style architecture, cool, sturdy, and always a little too quiet. Even in the peak of summer, walking into that kitchen at noon felt like stepping into winter. And tonight, the cold felt unnatural. The kitchen sat at the far end of the L, surrounded by thick bushes and trees. The windows had no bars, just wooden frames. Outside was nothing but dark leaves swaying. But something felt off, like the air itself had memory. And it remembered her. Sitting inside the house looking out the window, all I could see was a thick, endless darkness. The only thing that broke the silence was a low, whining sound from somewhere in the distance. I made my way down to the kitchen. The first thing I noticed was the plate of spaghetti shattered on the floor. My brother must have been so terrified he dropped it while running. I glanced out the kitchen window again. Nothing, just pitch black. I let out a sigh, trying to steady myself. "There's nothing out there," I muttered. "You're just hungry. Probably imagined it." But he protested. "I saw her. How could I mistake that? Her face. It was green, like she wasn't even human." He went quiet. "God," I said. "Do you really have to describe it like that?" Deep down, I wanted to believe him. Part of me did believe him, but something made me keep denying it. Maybe fear, maybe logic. "There's no such thing as ghosts," I told him. "Stop talking nonsense. Just get another plate and eat your damn spaghetti." He looked irritated that I didn't believe him, but he didn't argue. He quietly grabbed a new plate and went back to the pot, but then his hand stopped mid-air. He stared into the pot, frozen. "What now?" I asked, trying to keep the sarcasm in check. He didn't respond. Just took a deep breath and gestured for me to come over. I walked over and peeked into the pot. The half-full pot of spaghetti from earlier that evening was now almost empty. Just a few soggy noodles clinging to the bottom. What made my stomach turn wasn't the food. It was the thick green slime coating the sides of the pot. It looked like river water. Just then, a gust of cold wind swept through the window and hit my back. I turned around instinctively. Nothing. But in the silence that followed, I could almost hear him whisper again behind me. "Do you believe me now? I saw her. I really did." He looked like he was going to cry. I couldn't tell if it was fear or something else. Maybe both. Trying to snap us both out of it, I forced a smile, started humming a random tune, and pulled out a chair. "Come on," I said. "Probably just some stray cat. Hungry, snuck in, knocked stuff over." He muttered, "There's nothing left to eat." I blinked. He was right. Only a few filthy strands were left, smeared in mud or whatever that stuff was. And my stomach was growling hard. There was no way I could sleep like this. But it was so late. Cooking again now would take forever. "You think it's still early or something?" I said. "We're screwed. What are we gonna eat now?" He shrugged. "I don't know. Why don't we go to Mr. Thayer's and ask if he's got any leftover burgers?" "It's almost midnight. You think he's still up?" He hesitated, scratching his head. My little brother was still too scared to go to Zinnia's house alone, so I told him to take the path on the left. It would feel less creepy. "Just ask for a bit more," I said. "We'll pay her back tomorrow when we cook." I handed him a big bowl, but he just stood there, spinning it slowly in his hands like he was stalling. I raised an eyebrow and asked, "You think Zinnia's still awake?" He nodded. "She watches movies all night, sometimes doesn't sleep till 2 or 3. He finally stepped outside, still holding the bowl like it was something cursed. As he reached the gate, he froze. His face turned pale, like he was about to cry. "Can you come with me?" he asked quietly. "I'm really scared." I sighed. "You're a guy. Don't act like some scared little kid waiting for your wife to hold your hand." He looked relieved, shoved the bowl back into my hands like it was ticking and said, "You're going by yourself?" Typical. 2 seconds ago, he wanted me to go with him. Now that I agreed, he dumped it all on me like he had nothing to do with it. I stepped off the porch, and before I even made it to the gate, the door slammed shut behind me. The light from the house flicked off. Darkness swallowed the yard. Everything looked familiar. The same trees, the same fences, the same road I'd walked 100 times. But now, it all felt different. Like something was off. The night was dead silent, except for the shrill cries of insects. Normally, I wouldn't be scared. But ever since Calliope died the way she did, something about this place had changed. It was like her death had disturbed something. Like she wasn't resting. My legs were steady at first, but now they were starting to shake. The village road isn't like the ones in the city. Ours is old and cracked. Just one main road leading out to town. Wide, flat, but lined with thick trees and bushes that twist into weird shapes at night. And of course, I forgot to bring a flashlight. I walked into complete darkness, each step echoing on the ground. At times, I swore I heard footsteps behind me, but when I turned, there was nothing, just black. So I kept walking, eyes locked on the faint, flickering light from Zinnia's house in the distance. I told myself not to think. Just focus on the light. Keep walking. Don't imagine anything. Don't remember. But that's the problem with fear. When you try not to think about something, it always comes back stronger. I saw her face again. Calliope's. Pale, frozen. Eyes wide open, full of rage. Like she was still staring straight at me. That face, it terrified me. I felt a creeping numbness crawl down my back as if something cold had gripped my spine. My legs moved faster than I could think, nearly slipping on the uneven road, but I didn't dare slow down. All I could hear was the wind rushing past my ears, a hollow roar that drowned out everything else. I was alone in the dark, no one in sight, and the fear pounding inside my chest was worse than anything I'd ever felt. Images flashed in my mind. Her pale, lifeless face, the furious, unblinking eyes that seemed to burn into mine. I didn't know what I was running from, but I couldn't stop. I held the large bowl out in front of me like a shield, half expecting something to jump out of the darkness at any moment. Then suddenly, my foot caught on something. I tripped, crashed to the ground, and tumbled forward, rolling hard across the dirt. My head spun, and before I could sit up, something cold and wet slapped me right in the face. I screamed, panicked, clawing at it until I flung it off. Heart racing, I looked down. It was a frog. Just a damn frog. It must have leapt at me while I was down. But in that moment, it felt like a ghost had grabbed me. I stood there, gasping, hands scraped, hair full of dust and leaves. At least the fall snapped me out of my panic long enough to breathe. Then I remembered. The bowl. I looked around. Gone. I turned in circles, scanning the dirt path. There was no moon tonight, no stars, just thick clouds and heavy blackness. Not even the faintest glint of the bowl's edge. Weird. I was sure it had landed somewhere nearby. As I searched, crouching and moving my hands along the ground, a new sound broke through the silence. Footsteps. Light. Dragging. Slow. They came from the side. Not ahead of me, not behind, but from the bushes that lined the road. My chest tightened. I turned, eyes straining to pierce the thicket, but I saw nothing. "Who's there?" I called, my voice shakier than I wanted it to be. No reply. Just those soft steps in the dirt. Even the crickets had gone silent, as if the whole night was holding its breath. And in that silence, those footsteps sounded louder, clearer, closer. By now, even though I still couldn't see anything, I didn't need anyone to tell me whose footsteps those were. The terror was overwhelming. My entire body felt limp and useless, like something had wrapped itself around my limbs, holding me in place. I wanted to run, to scream, but I couldn't even twitch. It felt like my arms and legs belonged to someone else. I had to summon every last ounce of strength just to reclaim control over my body. My mouth opened and I shouted into the darkness. "I didn't do anything to you. I helped with the funeral for 3 days straight. Wasn't that enough? Why are you still following me, trying to scare me? I was in a blind panic, shouting and cursing things I don't even remember clearly now. All I recall is that after I screamed, the footsteps suddenly paused for a few seconds, and then rushed straight toward me. That was when something inside me snapped free. I could move again. I clenched my jaw, braced myself, and exploded into a full sprint. I didn't care about the branches slashing my face or the leaves whipping past my skin. I just ran. I didn't stop to think. I didn't dare look back. But the footsteps didn't stop either. They chased after me, matching every stride. I'd never run that fast in my life. At one point, I could swear whatever it was had crept right up behind me. I heard it breathing, some horrible, wet, unnatural sound, but I didn't look. I wouldn't look. I knew if I turned around even once, I might never come back. I'd just vanish into that night, like she did. Whatever was behind me, it was mocking me. I knew it. I could feel it staying just close enough to make me think it would grab me, but it never did. It wanted me to know it was there, breathing on my neck, but not yet touching me. 100 meters never felt so long. That short distance felt like an endless nightmare, like time itself had stretched just to torment me. I kept running, stumbling, pushing forward until finally, the thick, dark trees gave way to the faint light spilling from Zinnia's front porch. I saw her door, blessed, solid, real, and slammed my fists against it with everything I had.
Open the door! Open the door, Zinnia! I shouted, pounding on it with both fists. The door hadn't even opened yet, and already I felt it. An icy chill creeping up my arm, numbing it to the bone. And then, that sound, a low, unnatural groan right behind me. So close it felt like it was breathing on my neck. But just then, I heard the latch turn, and Zinnia opened the door. "What's with the pale face? You look like you've seen a ghost," she said, frowning. And as if on cue, the heavy breathing behind me vanished. The stench, the suffocating cold clinging to the back of my neck, gone, just like that. I gasped for breath, still trembling, and mumbled, Can I have a burger?" Zinnia burst out laughing. "Heavens, what the heck happened to you? All that drama just for a burger? And look at you, you're covered in dirt. Did you fall or something?" "Yeah, it was dark, I tripped," I muttered and walked inside. I sat down on her green fabric hammock and kept my eyes fixed outside, scanning the pitch-black yard. It was still so dark out there. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, breaking the silence. I was safe for now, but the thought of walking back home alone later, through that overgrown path, filled me with dread. I didn't know if that thing had gone, or if it was still out there, waiting. As my thoughts spiraled, Zinnia came over, holding 2 burgers and looking confused. "What's wrong? Is it all gone?" she asked, furrowing her brow. Something about the way she said that made my stomach twist. She handed me the pot and muttered, "Don't know which brat it was, but they cleaned it out. And look, mud all over it." I looked inside, empty to the bottom. Greasy residue clung to the sides, just like what I'd found at home. But oddly enough, I felt a little relieved. At least it wasn't just our place. Whatever it was, it had caused trouble elsewhere too. Maybe it was just messing around, not something personal. Zinnia looked at me, puzzled. "What's going on? Do you know something?" I hesitated, then waved it off. "It's nothing. I should get going." "You sure?" "Yeah, I'll pay you back for the burgers tomorrow." I glanced outside again, then bolted out the door and sprinted home. This time, I made up my mind. Not to stop, not to look, not to care what I heard or saw. Just run. Run straight home, and don't think. Thanks to my ancestors' blessings or sheer dumb luck, I made it back without anything happening. Well, except maybe a weird sound, like someone was chasing me. But that could have just been in my head. "Did a ghost chase you or something?" my little brother asked when he saw me later. "No," I lied. "I just tripped in the dark, hit a rock or something." He squinted. "You must have been running pretty fast then. Normal walking wouldn't get you scraped up like that." My brother and I slept straight through the night. In the morning, he went to Mom and asked, "Hey, did you hear? Last night, someone went around the neighborhood stealing everyone's spaghetti pots."
By morning, there was nothing left to eat. The weirdest part? Someone dumped a whole pile of spaghetti right in front of Mr. Thayer's house. Even the dogs wouldn't touch it. Who the hell steals food just to throw it out for dogs? People's spaghetti, meant for dinner, was stolen just to be tossed like garbage. Yesterday I was still unsure, but now I understood what happened last night. There was no one else it could have been. It had to be Calliope, coming back from the dead, just to feed those dogs. In her lifetime, Calliope loved them more than anything. She was unstable, yes, but she never once let those dogs go hungry. Later that day, after lunch, we were sitting around, not doing much, when my brother said, "Hey, want to go to Mr. Thayer's house and see if it was really Calliope who dumped the spaghetti? Or is it just some neighbor making stuff up?" I hesitated. Fear still clung to me like smoke from last night. But curiosity had a stronger grip. "All right," I said, "let's go." The road to Mr. Thayer's house wasn't much different from the one to Zinnia's, just a bit shorter. When we arrived, we saw him lying there as usual. Mr. Thayer was blind, so his eyes were always shut. We couldn't tell if he was asleep or awake. I looked around and spotted the spaghetti mess right away, scattered across the yard. One of the dogs was lying nearby, belly swollen like a drum, clearly stuffed to the brim. Hearing the dog bark, Mr. Thayer called out, "Who's there?" "It's me, sir," I answered. "Just passing by." "Ah, kids these days. Out in the midday heat instead of napping like normal people," he grumbled. "I just saw you lying there, figured I'd stop by to check in." "Well, thanks for that." I took a few steps closer to where he was lying and got a better look at the mess. The dogs, who had seemed calm a moment ago, suddenly turned aggressive. Their friendly demeanor was gone in an instant, and it unsettled me. I got nervous. If I stuck around any longer, they might decide to take a bite out of me. Just one look at their white, sharp teeth was enough to send a chill down my spine. I quickly turned around and started walking back home. We'd barely taken 10 steps when my brother froze, face pale, and pointed behind me. I followed his gaze and saw it. The hammock Mr. Thayer had been lying in. It was swinging violently, back and forth at a speed that seemed unreal. It creaked and whooshed in the air, as if someone were trying to launch him straight out of it. The sound it made was loud, unnatural, almost like the wind was howling from inside the ropes. It was hard to believe that an old blind man, halfway to the grave, could rock a hammock with that kind of force. Afraid that Mr. Thayer might fall, I rushed over to hold the hammock still. But strangely, he just lay there motionless, eyes shut, breathing slow and steady like he was in a deep sleep. He didn't react at all. That's when a chill crept up my spine. Mr. Thayer clearly wasn't the one swinging the hammock. So who was? I looked around. No one. Not a soul in sight. Just the two dogs sitting quietly in the corner of the yard, tails curled neatly beneath them like they were calmly greeting someone familiar. If we had arrived and the dogs had acted like that from the start, I wouldn't have thought anything of it. But I remembered clearly how aggressive they were earlier. There's no way they'd suddenly welcome us back so sweetly. My brother tugged on my arm. His voice trembled. "Do you feel that? It's freezing. I got chills all up my spine." And he was right. The air around the hammock felt unnaturally cold, the same kind of icy, suffocating chill I'd felt last night when something was chasing me. That presence, it was back. Worse, the back of my neck tingled like something was breathing on me, watching me. That same angry stare, sharp, resentful, burning through my skin. I reached up to my nose. My brother's breath was calm. That was a relief. At least he was still himself. Without saying a word, I grabbed his hand and pulled him away. My heart was pounding, but I forced myself not to run. We moved fast, our steps quick and tight, and the moment we stepped beyond the reach of the hammock, the air turned warm again. Instantly. It wasn't just me, my brother felt it too. The shift was unmistakable. As soon as we got home, we slammed the door shut like we were trying to keep something from slipping in behind us. The inside of the house felt dimmer than usual. Mom wasn't home. Moments later, the sky turned. Dark clouds rolled in. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Then came the rain. First soft, then a blinding downpour. Rain in the countryside is wild. The wind lashes through the trees like a whip, and the garden outside roars like it's alive. Normally, I'd find it peaceful. But today it felt wrong. Like something was hiding in that storm, watching. I flicked on every light in the house, tried to chase the darkness away. Then suddenly, my brother jumped down from the chair, bolted to the back of the house, and came back holding a clove of garlic and a knife. My heart stopped. Was he possessed? Was something inside him? Was he about to stab me? I backed away instinctively, voice cracking. "What the hell are you doing?" He looked at me, placed the knife and the garlic down, scratched his head and mumbled. "I heard ghosts are scared of these things." I glanced at him, sighed. "You've watched too many movies. There's no such thing as ghosts. And even if there were, why would they be scared of garlic and a kitchen knife?" The room fell into a heavy silence. The rain outside kept pounding down like it was trying to swallow the whole village. We sat there just staring at each other, but I knew my brother wasn't paying attention to anything in this room. His mind was still trapped back at that hammock in Mr. Thayer's yard. After a while, he tugged lightly at my sleeve. "What now?" "Back at Mr. Thayer's. I swear I felt like someone was staring at me the whole time." "Well, you've always been a scaredy cat. Probably just your imagination." "No, it wasn't. I felt it. It was real." "Stop talking nonsense. Let me play some music." But before I could hit play, thunder cracked so loud it shook the walls. Lightning flashed across the window. The only light bulb in the room flickered. Once, twice, then went completely dark. Everything around us turned pitch black. Outside, the wind howled like something was screaming through the trees. I swallowed hard. Just a blackout. Maybe lightning hit the power line. But then, bang! The front door rattled violently like something heavy slammed into it from the outside. We both froze, eyes locked on the door. But through the window, there was nothing. Just the foggy, shifting shadows of night. No footsteps, no voice, no flashlight beam, only the wind. My brother pressed himself against my side, trembling. His lips moved, but no words came out. "Sis, the knocking's getting louder." The doors were locked tight, but they kept rattling violently, like they were about to burst open. My little brother gripped my arm tightly, his hands cold and shaking like an old man at death's door. Before I could figure out what to do, a voice suddenly called from outside. "Open the door!" Rain was pouring, thunder cracking across the sky, wind howling through the trees, and the roof creaked like it might collapse. The storm muffled the voice, but I could still make out the words, broken and warped by the rain. What startled me most was that someone outside had just called my name, and it was a woman's voice. I wasn't terrified, not yet, but my brother's fear started seeping into me. Then another flash of lightning lit up the room, followed by a lull in the noise. The voice outside came again, clearer this time. "Open the door. It's so cold." It sounded exactly like Zinnia. Why would she come here in this weather? I turned to my brother. "Didn't you hear that?" That was Zinnia calling me. I reached for the latch. As soon as I slid it halfway, my brother jumped up from the couch and grabbed my arm, yanking me away from the door. "What are you doing?" I asked. He looked terrified, whispering, "That's not Zinnia's voice, I'm telling you, it's not her." I pulled my arm back. "Come on. I've known Zinnia since we were kids. I'd know her voice anywhere." I stepped toward the door again, determined. My brother looked confused for a second, then threw himself at me, dragging me backward until I lost my balance and fell to the floor. "Are you possessed or something?" he shouted. And for a moment, I froze. Because he might be right. The voice outside had sounded just like Zinnia's. But something about it wasn't quite right. It echoed too long, cut too sharply through the rain. It sounded human, but also didn't. Sure, I'd been away from the neighborhood for a while, but that didn't mean I'd forgotten how people here sounded, especially not someone like Zinnia. And yet, whatever was standing outside that door, no matter how much it sounded like her, deep down, I knew. That wasn't her. I was certain it was Zinnia's voice, while my brother insisted it was Anna. But how could that be? One of us had to be wrong, and yet, thinking back, something wasn't right. That strange pull I felt just moments ago, like something deep inside me was pushing me, dragging me toward the door. I couldn't resist it, no matter how hard I tried. Could it be true what people say about spirits calling your soul? about being lured, entranced until you lose control of your body. Maybe I really was possessed. That thought alone made a surge of rage rise inside me, hot and wild, like I was no longer in control. Had I really been possessed all this time? Out of nowhere, a violent rage erupted inside me, wild, uncontrollable. I shot to my feet like a madman and charged toward the doors, still trembling violently against the storm. "What are you doing?" my brother shouted, but it was too late. I tore the latch free and kicked the door with everything I had. It burst open with a loud crack, and instantly the wind howled through, slapping cold rain into my face like a punishment. I didn't care. I stood in the doorway, drenched and screaming like someone who'd lost their mind. "If you're so brave, then show yourself. What did I ever do to you, huh? Why are you haunting me? You think I'm scared?" But no one answered. Only the deafening roar of the storm. The yard beyond was chaos. Trees bending under the weight of the wind, rain hammering the ground like war drums. It felt like the world was ending. From behind me, my brother's voice trembled through the madness. "Close the door, please. It's freezing. The floor's soaked." Still no one outside. Just me, soaked to the skin, my anger collapsing into silence. The heat inside me faded as the cold crept in, crawling under my skin, wrapping around my bones. That sudden burst of bravery was gone now, replaced by something else, something quiet and creeping. I reached out to shut the door, and then I heard it. A voice. Zinnia's voice. Soft, hesitant, coming from the right, just outside, between the door and the wall. It's me. What's with all the yelling?" I jolted, heart slamming in my chest. I turned and peered through the narrow gap. And there she was, a pair of wide, frightened eyes staring back at me from the darkness. It really was Zinnia. For a second, I didn't know what to think. Did she think I was insane? "Zinnia, that's really you."
I thought it was a ghost," I stammered. "Quick, come inside."
Zinnia still didn't move from her spot. She stood frozen in the narrow space between the door and the wall, eyes locked on mine, confused. "What's with all the yelling? You scared the hell out of me." "Oh, nothing," I said quickly, trying to sound casual. "I thought it was just some neighborhood kids playing pranks. Come in already, you're getting soaked." She gave me a long look from head to toe, probably trying to figure out if I'd gone insane. When she seemed convinced I wasn't a complete lunatic, or maybe just calmed down from whatever episode she thought I'd had, she finally stepped out from the gap and shuffled into the house. My brother rushed off to grab a towel and handed it to her. Zinnia took it with trembling fingers, her whole body drenched, face pale and lips slightly purple from the cold. She was wearing a simple set of home clothes, thin fabric, loose and comfortable, like something most girls in the neighborhood would wear indoors. But with the rain soaking it through, it clung to her in places it shouldn't, outlining every curve. Even though she was wearing underwear, it didn't help much. I felt my face heat up, a burning flush that crawled up my neck. We'd been childhood friends, same age, living just a few houses apart. Back then, we were inseparable. Our families used to joke about us getting married someday, but everything changed when I started high school in the district. Zinnia had to drop out because her family couldn't afford to keep her in school. After that, we barely talked. I went on to college in New York, and the gap between us only grew. Whenever I came back to visit, I might see her in passing. We were acquaintances now, close but distant, friends, but not really. "Where's your bike?" I asked. "I left it right out front," she said. "Didn't you see it?" I shook my head. There was nothing there. Zinnia's face changed instantly. She spun toward the door, eyes wide, and yanked it open. Rain lashed at her as she peered into the dark. Then she turned back to me, panic rising in her voice. "But I parked it right by the porch, I swear! You don't think someone stole it?" "In this storm?" I muttered. That made no sense. No one would be out in weather like this just to steal a bike. Before I could say anything else, Zinnia bolted out the door. 20 million dong motorbike might not mean much to city folks, but for someone from the countryside, especially a girl like Zinnia, it was practically a fortune. No wonder she was panicking. I hesitated for a moment, then dashed out after her. No way I was letting her go out there alone, especially not when I had a sinking feeling about who or what might have taken the bike. But when I got outside, she was gone. Let me explain. Our property is huge, surrounded by fruit trees planted years ago, now thick with branches and leaves. It's the rainy season, and everything has grown wild. The trees form a dense wall around the yard. In this half-light, with the storm pouring down, you couldn't tell what was a person and what was a tree. Everything blurred together into a tangle of shadows and silhouettes. Cold rain soaked through my clothes as I ran around the house, calling her name again and again. No response. My brother must have noticed, because he came running out too, calling out with me. But neither of us heard a thing, not a peep. Our voices vanished into the rain. We looked at each other, both already thinking the worst. Zinnia had been taken, hidden, by something. There was no other explanation. 1 minute she was in front of us, the next she was gone. In a downpour like this, where could she have gone? We shouldn't stick together, I told my brother. It'll take too long to search that way. You head to Zinnia's place. See if she made it back somehow. I'll check over by Mr. Thayer's. He looked like death, pale, lips trembling, but he just nodded. Be careful. Then he took off into the dark, rain pelting his back. I stood still for a moment, staring toward Mr. Thayer's property. From here, it was just a wall of shadows, branches and leaves twisting like arms in the wind. They looked like they were moving, twitching, dancing. I rubbed the water out of my stinging eyes, took a deep breath, and bent down to pick up a thick branch lying on the ground. Holding it tight in both hands, I pressed forward into the garden path. Each step I took, I kept the heavy piece of wood in front of me, ready to strike at the slightest noise, the smallest movement, whether it was a person, an animal, or something from beyond. I didn't care. I was ready to swing. The wind kept whipping through the trees, making the branches sway suddenly, and every time they did, I flinched, flailing the heavy stick wildly at the shadows. Then the old brick-paved yard came into view, slick with moss and rain. Just this afternoon, Mr. Thayer and his pack of dogs were lounging here. But now, with the storm pounding down, the place was deserted. I stood alone in the open space, soaked to the bone, swallowed by the cold and the darkness. I crept forward slowly, eyes scanning every corner. This place felt colder than my house, much colder. I didn't know if it was real or just my fear making it worse, but the chill felt like someone had dumped a bucket of ice over my whole body. My hands and feet trembled. Moving was hard. Running? Impossible. If anything were to happen now, I doubted I'd even be able to flee. The stick in my hand kept shaking so violently, I nearly dropped it more than once. But even though I was scared out of my mind, I didn't turn back. I forced myself to make another slow sweep around the yard, even ducking into the thick brush to look for Zinnia. Nothing. No sign of her. Just disappointment, and a deepening sense of dread. When my patience and courage had been drained to the very bottom, I heard it. A sound. A deep, guttural huffing noise, right behind me. Despite the storm, the wind, and the hammering rain, the noise came through clear, like thunder crashing inside my skull. My instincts took over. I spun around, heart pounding, and swung the wooden stick down hard at whatever I caught in the corner of my eye. A black blur, fast, darted away just in time. The impact splashed thick mud up into my face. Sand and grit flew into my eyes, blinding me. I staggered backward, my back slamming against the trunk of a mango tree, trying to brace myself. One hand rubbed desperately at my eyes, the other kept a death grip on the stick. I yelled into the storm, voice hoarse, trying to scare off whatever was out there. But the huffing sound didn't stop. It came again, closer this time, urgent, taunting. I scrubbed harder at my eyes. Thank God for the rain. It finally washed the grit away. I blinked rapidly, struggling to refocus, knowing full well that whatever was out there, it hadn't gone far. As my vision cleared, I lifted my eyes, only to be met with a chilling sight. Right in front of me, barely 2 meters away, was Muck, Mr. Thayer's dog. Its tongue hung out, long and red, dripping saliva. Or was it rainwater? onto the ground. Its eyes were wide and fixed on me. Sharp white fangs jutted from its mouth, and there was something feral in its expression. Something I'd never seen in it before. So that shadow from earlier, it had been Muck all along. I let out a slow, shaky breath of relief, but I didn't let my guard down. I gripped the wooden stick tighter. The way the dog stood there, unmoving, growling deep in its throat, it made me uneasy. It wasn't wagging its tail or showing any sign it recognized me. Instead, it looked like it was ready to lunge at any second. I slowly raised my left hand in a calming gesture, keeping the stick lowered behind my back and my right. "Mook, what are you doing out here?" I said softly. "It's me. Don't you recognize me?" The dog didn't react. No excitement, no recognition. Just those low, guttural growls, one after another, echoing from its chest. It was guarding something, or stopping me from going further. I stared at it, heart pounding. I'd never really paid attention to what breed Mook was, but now, under the stormy night sky, I realized how big it was. Muscular chest, lean but powerful body. If it jumped, it could easily sink its teeth into my face. Normally, these dogs were gentle. I'd never been afraid of them. But now, it looked possessed, its stance tight, unyielding, as if any wrong move would trigger an attack. The sight reminded me of old stories, of ritual sacrifices, of beasts trained to kill. I carefully hid the stick behind my back. I didn't want to provoke it. "It's me, Mook. Why are you out here alone?" But no matter what I said, Mook didn't move. It stayed there, guarding the path, growling, locked in place like a living statue. The sound rumbled from deep in its throat, like it was warning me. "Don't take another step." A wave of cold washed over me. Not the chill from the rain. This was something deeper, something from inside. I didn't need a mirror to know that my face had gone pale as death. Then, from the far side of the garden, a bark. A single, vicious, ear-splitting bark that shattered the night like a gunshot. It came from deeper in the darkness, and that was it. My legs gave out. I almost dropped to my knees. Whatever fear I'd felt last night, this was worse. This was pure dread, as if something ancient and unspeakable had just awakened. The moment that bark pierced the air, Mook bolted, racing straight toward the source of the sound. My nerves, stretched tight like thin wires, finally loosened just a bit. I collapsed to the ground, gasping for air, my hands clasped tightly together as I tried to shake off the chill wrapping around my body. As I started to come back to my senses, I realized something. The bark I just heard sounded exactly like Vang's, and the direction it came from. It was the old well in Mr. Thayer's backyard, the same place where Calliope had drowned. Only an idiot would go back to that cursed well. Forget about Mook. Just that damn well alone was enough to make my stomach churn. Who knew what was waiting for me there now? I forced myself to stand up. My whole body ached with exhaustion. Everything felt heavy and drained. I wanted to leave. I needed to leave. But then a thought struck me. What if Zinnia was taken there? What if she was trapped? It made a terrifying amount of sense. That well. It was practically Calliope's home now. I clenched both fists tight, my chest heaving. My conscience screamed at me. I couldn't just walk away. I couldn't leave Zinnia out there, alone. Maybe the odds were slim. Maybe I was chasing shadows. But if something happened to her and I had done nothing, I couldn't live with that. With a deep breath, I picked up the wooden stick again and started toward the well. It sat behind the house, in the far left corner of the garden, hidden behind a thick mess of overgrown bushes. That whole area was choked with trees, branches weaving into each other so tightly that sunlight barely touched the ground, even on the brightest days. Moss covered everything, slick and cold, colder even than the front yard by a long shot. As I drew closer, I could hear Mook's snarling more clearly now. And mixed in, faint but unmistakable, was Vang's weak, whimpering cry. In the shifting dark, yellow-black shapes darted back and forth, blurry shadows of the dogs moving through the gloom. I had no idea what the hell they were doing, but it sent shivers crawling up my spine. Still, I pushed forward, heart pounding, and shouted out at the top of my lungs.
It's me, Mook, Vong.
"What are you doing over there?" I shouted, my voice barely cutting through the rain. At the sound, Vong let out a high, urgent bark. It almost sounded like relief. But Mook only growled, low and guttural, a sound that crawled through the air like something alive. As I crept closer, soaked and shaking, I finally saw them. Zinnia was lying motionless in the mud, her entire body covered in dirt, her limbs limp beside the old well. Vong stood next to her, blood streaming down its face, licking her cheek again and again, as if trying to rouse her. Its legs trembled, the way animals do when they're seconds from collapsing. Just a few feet away, Mook crouched low, its eyes glowing eerily in the dark, teeth bared, tongue lolling unnaturally long from its jaw. Drool or rain, I couldn't tell, but something about it looked wrong. It wasn't panting, it was stalking. I rushed forward, heart slamming in my chest, and knelt beside Zinnia. "Vong, what happened to you? What's going on? Zinnia!" Her skin was cold, her lips pale, but when I leaned in close, I felt the faintest breath against my cheek. She was alive, barely. Then, without warning, Mook let out a chilling, inhuman screech and lunged toward us. I couldn't react in time. Zinnia was still in my arms, but Vong sprang forward in a last burst of strength, intercepting Mook midair. The crash was violent, teeth tearing into flesh, and Vong went down hard. Mook sank its jaws deep into its chest and began thrashing, ripping at muscle and fur, its growls now wet and frenzied. I screamed, dropped Zinnia to the side as gently as I could, and grabbed the wooden stick I'd carried here for protection. I swung it as hard as I could at Mook's hind leg. A sickening snap rang out, and the dog yelped, its leg folding at an unnatural angle. But it didn't stop. Bloodied and frenzied, it staggered upright on 3 legs, its eyes locked on me, wild and white with fury. It wanted blood. My blood. I raised the stick again, breath coming in gasps, rain stinging my face, and shouted, "Come any closer and I swear to God, I'll kill you." My voice cracked. I was shaking, but I meant every word. Something inside me had broken. Fear, maybe, or hesitation. It was gone. All that remained was raw instinct, the will to survive, and the need to protect the girl lying helpless behind me from whatever nightmare this had become. If it had lunged again, I think I would have fought with everything I had, even if it meant going down with it. But then, suddenly, without warning, Mook, who just seconds ago had been snarling and ready to rip me apart, stopped. Its tail, once raised high in aggression, dropped flat against its hind legs. It let out a low, strange whimper, almost like it was warning me, or trying to signal something. The complete shift in its behavior sent a bolt of dread through me. And then, my back turned ice cold. Not the kind of chill I'd been feeling since the rain started. This was something entirely different. This was pain. It was like someone had pressed a solid block of ice against my spine and held it there until every nerve froze and shattered. I'd never felt anything like it. The cold seeped into my bones, my chest, my guts, and worse, it hurt. Every inch of my body stung and throbbed like I was being stabbed by thousands of tiny needles at once. Then I heard it, this guttural, choking growl that sounded eerily similar to the noise Mook had made earlier, but it couldn't be from him now. He was cowering, tail tucked, eyes fixed in terror on something just behind me. That sound, whatever it was, came from something else, something that was now standing right behind me. The freezing presence wrapped itself around me like fog, crawling down my legs, locking my muscles into place. I couldn't move, couldn't even scream. My breath hitched, chest rising and falling in panic. Teeth clenched, muscles tight, I forced my body, numb and stiff, to turn around inch by inch. It felt like I was moving through wet cement. My knees nearly buckled. I only managed to rotate halfway when my eyes finally caught it. Something that burned itself into my brain in that moment. Something I know I will never, ever forget for the rest of my life. Zinnia, who had been lying motionless just moments ago, was now standing. I didn't even know when she got up. Her face was tilted downward, and the low, guttural, growling sounds I'd heard, they were coming from her. Her long black hair, soaked and matted with mud, hung down in wet strands, clinging to the rain-soaked earth. Her pale neck was fully exposed, skin ghostly white. Zinnia, I barely managed to say her name. That was it. My jaw locked up like metal, my tongue twitching uselessly in my mouth. I couldn't speak another word. My legs buckled, numb and unresponsive, and I collapsed to the ground. Flat on my back, I stared up at Zinnia, or rather, at the thing now wearing her skin, watching in paralyzed horror as it began to move, as if performing some twisted, demonic ritual. The growling sounds rumbled from deep inside her throat while she rose, slowly, painfully slowly, like a nightmare played in slow motion. Every second seemed stretched into forever, dread creeping deeper into every part of me. She finally stood, her posture crooked and unstable, and then she looked straight at me. Her mouth, normally small and delicate, was now stretched wide, impossibly wide, all the way to her ears. Blood and mud poured from it, dripping onto the ground in thick, slow streams. Her eyes rolled back, revealing only the whites, laced with long, pulsing veins, just like Calliope's corpse when I'd seen it days ago. Thunder cracked above us, loud and violent, as if the sky itself was warning me of the thing that now stood before me. And in that flash of lightning, Zinnia's form was more grotesque than ever. Her arms hung limply at her sides like there were no bones inside. Her spine curved forward unnaturally, and her pale, blood-smeared face stared at me, unblinking, blank, and utterly inhuman. Her mouth remained wide open, drooling dark blood that pooled across the rain-drenched ground, never once closing. After those deep, incomprehensible growls, Zinnia slowly lowered her head. Her feet dragged forward with difficulty, step by step, in my direction. Her long hair trailed across the wet ground, covering most of her deathly pale face, but not enough to hide those terrifying, upturned eyes that had never stopped staring at me. From the moment she rose, her gaze had followed my every movement, locked onto me with unnatural intensity. I was more terrified than I had ever been in my life. I wanted to scream, to scramble to my feet and run, but I couldn't move. My limbs, my fingers, even my breath felt nailed to the earth, paralyzed. I could only watch in stunned silence as Zinnia came closer and closer. Off to the side, Vang, the poor dog, was struggling to stand, desperate to come protect me. But as soon as it staggered forward, Muck, no longer a dog but something possessed, lunged with blind fury, dragging it back to the ground, biting and tearing without mercy. Blood spilled from Vang's torn body, blending into the puddles of rain until everything turned a murky, bruised red. Vang looked up at me with helpless black eyes, still trying to let me know it had done all it could, that it had tried, but there was no hope left. I should have accepted my fate then. It didn't take long for Zinnia to finally reach me. Her face, blistered and decaying, hovered inches from mine. The stench of death poured from her like a thick cloud, overwhelming, suffocating. It was the smell of rot, of corpses bloated and broken. It was 100 times stronger than anything I'd ever imagined death could smell like. The moment I breathed it in, I nearly passed out. My instincts took over, and I forced myself to hold my breath, trembling in a storm of panic. Behind me, Mook barked with crazed delight. I still couldn't move, not a single muscle. I could only watch, frozen, as Zinnia raised her hand. Her fingers, now tipped with long, black, claw-like nails, dripping with mud and filth, reached forward, and then clamped down on both sides of my jaw. I couldn't stop her. I couldn't even blink. This was the same Zinnia who once sat quietly sewing in the sunlight. And yet now her grip was stronger than any man's. Her fingers clamped down hard on my jaw, squeezing until pain shot through my skull, forcing my mouth to open wide, and the moment it did, the thick, soupy mud from Zinnia's gaping mouth began to drop, splattering straight into mine. The foul stench of decay invaded my throat. It was unbearable. I wanted to vomit, but couldn't. I gagged, choked, gasping for air as the slimy filth slid deeper inside me. In sheer panic, I found myself moving, my limbs, frozen just moments before, suddenly flailing in desperation. I shoved Zinnia away with all the strength I could gather, jamming my fingers into my throat, trying to claw the filth out. But just then, Zinnia let out a shrill, unnatural laugh that pierced my eardrums like needles. My head rang. Before I could react, one of her hands clamped around my throat, while the other grabbed my wrist and forced my fingers even deeper inside, jamming them down like a weapon. I felt them hit something deep. My gag reflex triggered violently, but I couldn't resist. Zinnia's strength was inhuman. Her grip tightened like iron, squeezing with crushing force as if trying to break my windpipe and splinter my bones. I kicked and writhed, but she held firm. The lack of oxygen made everything go fuzzy. My vision blurred, eyes bulging, veins bursting in my temples. The rain still fell, heavy and cold, but I could no longer feel it. My limbs convulsed, my body twisted in every direction, and all I could think, over and over, was, I'm going to die. I'm going to die right here, and no one will ever know why. No one will come, no one will help. A terrible stillness settled over me, and through it all, Zinnia kept laughing. That eerie, hollow laugh that didn't even sound human anymore. It echoed like it came from somewhere far away, someplace that didn't belong to this world. In that moment, I thought maybe I should just accept it. Maybe this was the punishment for wandering out here alone, under the rain, into this cursed place I never should have stepped foot in.
I never should have come back here.
Especially not at this cursed, God-forsaken time. In that final moment, when I could still barely feel my own existence, I thought of everything. 1,000 thoughts. Hundreds, maybe thousands of blurry faces flashed through my mind. Family, friends, people I loved. All of them fading one by one, until only one remained. My little brother's face. He was looking straight at me, terrified, shouting my name over and over. Sis! Sis! My eyes fluttered open. My vision was hazy, like I'd just come out of a nightmare. And there he was, squatting right beside my head, gripping my arm tightly. Teeth clenched as he yelled, "Open your mouth! Hurry! Open it!" That's when I realized my throat was completely blocked by something. I gasped, struggling, and instinctively opened my mouth wide. His face twisted in alarm as he reached in and pulled it out. It was my own hand. For some reason, it had been jammed deep down my throat, wedged so tightly that I nearly suffocated. I still don't understand how it got there. I gasped again, drawing in huge gulps of air, lungs expanding painfully as if they hadn't breathed for hours. The fresh air burned going in, but it meant I was alive. I looked around, disoriented, still trying to make sense of everything. And then I saw it. I was still in Mr. High's house, still lying beside the old well, right where I'd collapsed, just as I remembered, just before everything went black. The rain was still falling, but it had softened into a light drizzle. My little brother, after somehow snapping me back to consciousness, was now crouched next to Zinnia, trying to lift her upright. Just a few meters away, the yellow dog lay completely still. The black one, the demon mutt, was gone. We had to get out of here, now. That thought cut through the fog in my head like a blade. I forced myself to sit up, ignoring the mud caked all over my body, ignoring the pounding in my skull and the pain in my limbs. I screamed into my little brother's arm with a hoarse, broken voice. "You carry Zinnia back to the house, I'll take the yellow one." It should have been me taking care of Zinnia. I was older, stronger, but right now I was completely drained, barely able to walk, let alone carry someone. My brother didn't say a word. He just nodded, hoisted Zinnia over his back, and took off along the narrow trail that cut through the overgrown garden. I dragged myself over to the yellow dog. Thank God, it was still breathing, barely. I gathered what strength I had left and lifted it into my arms. It was heavy, dozens of kilos at least. But I forced myself to move, step by agonizing step, leaving that cold black well behind me. By the time I made it home, I collapsed beside the dog, placing it gently on the floor before sliding down against the wall, gasping for air. It weighed a ton, and I was already running on fumes. Just getting it back here felt like a miracle. I didn't know if my brother had made it back with Zinnia. God, I hoped she was okay. Everything that had happened back at Mr. Thayer's still clung to my memory, every detail, sharp and vivid. Even though my brother had woken me up later, even if part of me wondered whether Zinnia had actually been possessed, whether it was all some fever dream, None of it felt fake. It had been too real, especially the part where I'd found my own hand shoved deep into my throat when I came to. How do you explain something like that? Dream or not, I couldn't make sense of it. I reached into my mouth again, poking around my throat like a lunatic, hoping, dreading, that I'd feel some leftover sludge wedged inside. But no, there was nothing. Still, just remembering the way Zinnia had stuffed all that black muck into my mouth made my stomach twist. I couldn't hold it anymore. I ran outside and threw up everything I had, over and over again, until my body finally believed I was safe. After resting for a while, my brother returned. He told me he had already handed Zinnia back to her aunt and uncle. She was just cold, soaked from the rain too long. Nothing serious. I told him to grab some old towels to dry off the yellow dog and patch it up while he was at it. He tended to the dog, but his eyes kept darting toward me. He hesitated for a long time before finally asking, "What happened to you over there? You just passed out like that." I shook my head tiredly. I don't know, maybe just caught a chill or something. But even as I said it, I couldn't believe that myself. I'm strong, like farm strong. A little rain shouldn't be enough to knock me out cold. But saying Zinnia got possessed and tried to kill me, that's even harder to swallow. Anyone who hears that would laugh me straight out of the village. Then he lowered his voice and whispered, "You saw her, didn't you? Calliope." "I don't remember," I cut him off quickly. "Don't ask." I didn't want to tell him the truth about what I saw. Not because I was afraid he wouldn't believe me, but because I wasn't sure I believed it myself. Was it real? Or was it some rain-soaked hallucination? And more importantly, if Zinnia had really been possessed, the last thing I wanted was for that kind of story to get out. She's still unmarried. Who would want to be with a girl rumored to have been taken over by a ghost? No, best to keep quiet. I'd figure something out later. But he kept asking, couldn't help himself. I could see he was worried and curious. So I told him something. Not the whole truth, but something. I said I saw Calliope climb out of the well. That was all. No talk of Zinnia. He lit up. "See, I told you. Yesterday I said I saw her, but you didn't believe me. Her face was pale as death, wasn't it? Scared the hell out of me." "Yeah," I nodded slowly. "Pale. Not just her face. Her whole body was like that. White, dead white." My limbs were starting to ache again. My mind drifted, foggy and heavy. I didn't know what to make of any of this. All I could do was hope that after a good night's sleep, I'd wake up a little clearer. And maybe, just maybe, I'd finally understand what the hell was really going on.